Well, welcome everyone. We're having a little bit of Mercury retrograde stuff going on with our technology, but Nikki and Sarah are here with us tonight for the Milwaukee Public Library's book chat. We're so excited to see all of you. The chat should be functional as one of the things that is working, so feel free to say hello and where you're listening in from today. There we go. That works for me. I am Beth, and I'm the adult librarian at the East Branch of Milwaukee Public Library. I've been doing this book chat for a few years now. Before we officially get started, just a couple housekeeping things. Feel free to use that chat box to chat amongst yourselves. If you do have a question for one of the authors, it is really helpful if you can use the Q&A box. So then me and my colleague Tiffany can keep track of your questions. We'll have time for some of those at the end. We are also recording the chat, and you should be able to use your closed captions. If you do need those, just use the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. Sit back and relax. We'll be talking about a lot of things, a lot of books, a lot of links. You don't need to write down anything because I will send you an email in a couple days with all the great stuff we're talking about. All right. And so without further ado, let's introduce our special guests. I'm going to start with Nikki. By day, Nikki Payne is a curious tech anthropologist asking the right questions to deliver better digital services. By night, she dreams of ways to subvert canon literature. She's a member of Smut U, a premium feminist writing collective, and a cat lady with no cats. I will have to ask you about that. And then Sarah MacLean is the author of 16 New York Times bestsellers that have been translated into more than 25 languages. She's a co-host of the weekly romance novel podcast Fated Mates and is a leading voice of the romance genre. She's a product of Rhode Island summers and New England storms and now lives with her family in New York City. Her next novel, which we will ask her about, is called These Summer Storms and will be released next summer in 2025. Welcome to the chat, both of you. I'm so happy you could join us.
Thanks for
Thank you.
having us. I was just
Beautiful.
saying, I've wanted to do this for years, and I've always been like, why doesn't Beth ever invite me? Why doesn't she like me? But now I get to do it with Nikki, and that's the best part.
Oh yes.
Yes,
Oh yes.
yes, absolutely. And I told Sarah, I was like, it was more a me issue because Sarah has been like one of my favorite authors for a very long time. So I was mostly just nervous, but thanks for kicking me to get going. And I'm so delighted you're both here. I actually was so lucky. I traveled to New York this summer or spring, whenever that was,
Mhm.
to see you both at Fated Mates Live. Can you share a little bit about that experience with our listeners?
Well, Nikki wore a sequin jumpsuit, and that is all you need to know about how fun that night was.
It was the best.
It was amazing. And let me tell you something. There is a certain skill set for people who can remember we made some of these scenarios so incredibly hard for Sarah and yet they were able to just pull out Rex right off the top of their head. I mean, they're gifted. They're romance
The
gifted.
superpower. The
It's a
superpower.
superpower.
Savants. It's our only skill.
Oh,
We
hush.
can remember every romance we've ever read. But it's really, I mean, if I have a podcast, it's called Fated Mates. You can listen to it every Wednesday. I host it with my friend Jen, and we are both just longtime lovers of the genre. And it is always a joy when we find people who are just like us and just want to talk about the books and like how delicious romance is. And as Jen likes to say, it is fully unmatched. And so having Nikki with us for Fated Mates Live to just talk about romance and talk about just the full banana of romance was a real
Yes.
I see
joy.
what you did there. I see what you did there.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a pro.
Yeah, you are.
I love that so much. Where are each of you zooming in from today? I'm clearly in Milwaukee because Milwaukee Public Library, but where are each of you today?
I'm right outside of Washington, D.C.
And I'm in New York City.
Yay. And I've been seeing people react in the chat that we have people from all over, which is so great. And thank you for
Thank
joining
you all for
us.
coming.
And supporting our public libraries, which is important too. um, for those who might be newer to both of you or newer to romance, do you want to give just like a quick hit, besides your bio, like what is your last book release and, kind of what your romance hope our brand is.
You go first, Nikki, because you're more recent than me.
Sure. I would say my romance brand is rewriting steamy novels based on the books we were forced to read in high school. Um, absolutely. And my most recent book, Sex, Lies, and Sensibility, is about two sisters with wildly different temperaments who find out at the worst possible time that they are their father's outside children and they're gifted a dilapidated inn and they have to turn a profit in a year, but they have one problem. The extremely sexy indigenous tour guide at that property says that the house is his, and chaos ensues from there. Or love.
So good. It's so good.
Who's to know?
Who can say?
And I mean, it is a perfect romance. It's so sexy and it's so, I mean, the characters, the heroine is just trying to find space for herself in the world. And this man this man she ends up having to deal with, he's terrific.
Girl.
But my favorite flavor of romance is exasperated people fall in love. So, and that is this book. Just people at the end of their tether. It's great.
Yes, if they're not, I don't want to read it.
In Sarah's book, people are lighting tethers and they're blowing up. So, like,
it's true.
Is that the brand?
Exactly. Well, speaking of exasperated man, my most recent book is this one that you can see behind me. It's called Knockout. Yes. It is a historical romance. I write, until now, I have written exclusively historical romances. And this is the third in a series, but you don't have to have read the other two. It's about lady vigilantes who just want to blow shit up and burn shit down in Victorian England. This particular book, The Exasperated Man, is a Scotland Yard detective, and the heroine is a young woman who absolutely knows that Scotland Yard is not good business. And so the two of them run counter to each other, and then he ends up being so exasperated that he can't help but just want her all the time. And then the two of them take on Scotland Yard together, which is how I feel all people should live. So.
Absolutely. I see in the chat, my friend Jacqueline said there was a meme on Twitter she saw where it said, he was demure, she was a brat. Can I make it any more obvious? And that's given Imogen and Tommy.
Oh my gosh, Imogen and Tommy for life.
Perfect.
Tommy go boom, right?
Tommy go boom. So yeah, if nobody's getting punched in the face in a book, I probably didn't write it. I mean, that's generally
it's fair.
Real safe bet.
Wow. Still
so I beyond your sparkling chemistry together, I also picked you two because Sarah, you write mostly historicals, although you'll be dabbling into contemporary, which we'll ask about. And Nikki, you're more contemporary. What kind of drew you to those subgenres of romance?
I feel like Nikki, you're sort of both, like
kind of both, actually.
There is a real love of historical for Nikki.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I write historicals. I feel like I write historicals that are taking on modern day. Like for me, it feels like the best way to write. The reason why I love historical so much is because I can take what's happening in the modern world, in the contemporary world, and I can build a world historically where it's historically accurate. Everything old is definitely new again. More and more every day, it feels like in 2024. But also sort of really hold the reins tight on the world. So, I can build a world that has a small community, and like really strict guidelines and strictures and really high walls in terms of, when we get to a place where a heroine has to break something down, it feels huge. I want the feelings. For me, historical brings those kind of big, huge emotions because everything is in many ways dialed up to 11. It feels like it's fantasy for a lot of us when we dig into historicals. It's not just the beautiful dresses, but it's also, you know, this kind of sense that like these people thrived at a time when thriving wasn't always a guarantee. But also that they are thriving emotionally in a world where big feelings were criticized, where, you know, the role of women, the role of people of color, the role of queer people was really questioned. And so giving these characters like big romances and love stories in historical feels like a place where I can really comment on the world right now.
And just like to piggyback on that, one of the things that I love about reading Sarah's work in particular is that when there's always this argument, like when you're like reading about what's happening in the modern world, or people are extrapolating about how people thought. There's always this kind of like, there's people wouldn't dream of thinking like this. No one believed in these types of things. I'm thinking of like um enslavement, or like when people say, well, this is just the way it was. No one kind of thought beyond that. That's a modern way of thinking. I'm like, I'm pretty sure black folk were pretty,
Yeah.
pretty, but like the way that you write these heroines and heroes, it's like a nail on the hammer to say, like, I'm pretty sure, right, that women were still thinking about these very modern things in this very modern way even then.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that the imagination for equality, for goodness, for big emotions wasn't there. It's just something that we use to justify or qualify poor behavior in the past.
Right. Exactly. And when we write about, you know, I write Victorian, but it's interesting because the primary source material for so many of us being able to point to a character and say, like, look, people thought this way is Jane Austen. Like, Jane Austen wrote very modern characters, modern.
Yeah.
So seeing Nikki take those stories and just transform them it feels perfect in so many ways.
And
It
and
really does.
that's one of the things, like almost like the inversion of what Sarah described for herself is like, I like to take those Regency strictures, right? Those that bound world, right? That is like such a fun playground, and
Mm-hmm.
see how it can mold itself into the modern space. So you put this in our post-capitalist world. Do those strictures still stand? What can stay the same? What has to change? And that's the thought experiment. It's actually it's fun.
It's absolutely so great. I was, doing my research before this program, and you cited Clueless as kind of a big inspiration for you as a teen, and I mean, same.
Oh
A
my
banger.
banger.
Same. Absolutely.
Masterpiece.
Like masterpiece. Like you can take that movie today, yesterday, and like the themes and the feelings are universal, and that's what you're doing. And that's exactly how I feel when I've read both of your books so far that I've read, and just great. I had
Thank
to
you.
ask, did you also watch the Romeo and Juliet adaptation by Baz Luhrmann as a youth? Because that was around the
Oh,
same
Look at
time.
me.
please.
Look at me. Look at me. Of course.
I
Did
was
I
like,
have the soundtrack?
Only 15, 20 times in the movie theater.
Only 100
right?
times. Like when we talk about like the best Tybalt that has ever Tybalt,
Sure.
Mm.
Ever.
like like Claire Danes became everything to, like, we don't have the time. Okay.
Claire
I
Danes
know.
never aged in my head. Like she remains on
Mm-mm.
the other side of that fish tank forever.
she,
Forever.
she has, like,
Yes.
we have to go into like a full, we don't have the time, ma'am, to talk about
We'll have to book a follow-up for
yes,
Poetry Month. You'll just have
yes,
to come back. Sorry.
yes.
I love it so much.
But
And
I feel like Nikki does this really, I mean, Nikki, this is the perfect question for you because I feel like pop culture just is everywhere in your
It
books.
is.
And
Mhm.
I mean, even I don't mean references to pop culture. I mean, like, I feel like it's all there. I know you're a Star Trek fan. Like, I see it in the text. Like, and
Mhm.
so do you feel like, I'm sorry, Beth, I'm taking over.
No, please.
No, I love it.
Do you feel like you sit down and obviously you sat down and you were going to take on Austin, but do you think about what else you're putting in there or is it organic?
I think about ways that I communicate and ways that I make meaning or build metaphors. And when I think about, someone taking an audacious seat, I think of Riker. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so like
Exactly.
I do think about metaphors that build a visual um in folks' heads, but it is absolutely from my media consumption as a teen. The Riker sit, it. Like if
Mhm.
I say that a character like sat in a chair like Riker, you're going to have it in your head. And that's like these tiny little shortcuts that you can use
Mhm.
as a writer just to give characters embody them.
So good. And the people who know, and it just makes the overall reading experience so much fun and finding those little Easter eggs. And Sarah, you do that really well too
Oh,
with
she
both
does.
your MacLeaniverse, the Master MacLean verse, and callbacks to like other characters. And
Mhm.
do you have a series Bible at this point?
No. Which is a real problem, I'll tell you what. This is 20 I mean, so The Contemporary is my 20th book.
Hmm.
And now it really is my advice to anybody who is thinking about this career, especially in romance, especially in a romance in a genre where you're going to build a universe for yourself, is to start the series Bible young. I mean, the most notorious thing for me is I don't ever read my books again. Like I never open them again. And that is because if I open them again, I'm going to feel bad I'm going to want to rewrite them. So I never touch them. And very famously, at the beginning of my casino series, I named this journalist who was not intended to become a hero. He was just going to be a journalist. And then he became a hero in the fourth book, and his name changes. His first name changes.
Oops.
And so, and I, every, 3 or 4 months, I get an email from a reader who's like, is this the same? And I'm like, yeah, it's the same. I just didn't like, I mean, it still starts with it. He was like, you know, Dominic in the first one and Duncan in the last one. Like, and it just, changed in my head. So no, I don't is the answer. I hold the whole universe in my head, which
I
now
love
I'm
it.
like getting old. Like now I have a kid. I can't hold this stuff in my head anymore.
Wow.
Um, but I do, you speak about the Easter eggs in the book, and there are, right? Like my first book was set in, I think, 1815, and my most recent book was set in 1841. And so the world has evolved. Like people have there are people who are getting older. There are characters who have been in all, 19 books.
Mhm.
And what's really fascinating to me is people are always surprised that that happens, but I cut my teeth like in the early days on like these romance novelists who were writing these massive worlds, like Jude Deveraux and Beverly Jenkins and Judith McNaught, who were writing like huge worlds of characters where the joy of seeing somebody from 15 books ago was so acute that for me, I can't imagine just having to rebuild a world every time when I can give myself and readers this like
Mhm.
real joy.
Yeah.
Mhm. Even
That and
reading.
that I have the same dressmaker in every book. She's never aged. She's basically a witch. Like that's
Yeah.
my answer is she's a witch.
Yeah. Or like the Dread Pirate Roberts, you know?
Yeah,
It's
sure.
the same,
Yes,
just
perfect.
just passes
It is
down.
magical.
And like as a reader, just even seeing like a glimpse of like those characters furthering their happily ever after is kind of how I look at it. Even in like a gossip sheet like thing that's at the beginning of a chapter or just a quick glimpse at a ball, and you're just like, it really is happily ever after forever.
Yeah, like tiny little assurances.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's the real joy of romance. Like, I think, we hear so many people talk about romance like it's just like other books, right? Like, but it's not. There are real conventions of romance that if you lifted them up and set them down in, say, literary fiction, people
Yeah.
would say, like, well, this is weird. It's the same in every book. Like, isn't that strange? but the conventions of the genre are really about how much we as readers and writers adore the work of the genre and like really love the play back and forth. There's a constant dialogue with readers in romance that I think is really special and rare in other places.
Mhm,
Absolutely agree.
mhm. It just feels like being part of a club and you're like, I know these rules and I love seeing how everybody else plays with them or
Yeah.
breaks them sometimes, except the cardinal rule, which is happily ever after. I have a good time with it. I'm kind of known as like the romance person here because I finally got brave when I started working here about talking about reading romance novels. And so one of my questions for both of you was, were you always a romance reader like out loud, or did you like have like a moment where you, like I grew up not talking about it? Like it was I stole them from my mother and we never talked about it. And it was only until like I started being more online and I got this job that I was like, why am I embarrassed? This is just great reading. And I see people checking them out all the time.
Mhm.
And let's talk about it. It's been great. So, what about each of you?
I think I started out just um an omnivore. Like I think I'm in this generation where there was just no like great YA. Like we had like Hatchet,
Mhm.
Hatchet,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
know? Like or like if you're like done with like Sweet Valley High and all of that, then you're just like the pipeline from like Magic Treehouse to like Stephen King is like
that
to
was it.
that was it. Like you
Yep,
just went
me too.
straight on. So I just started like reading adult books very quickly, and that meant that I'm cutting my teeth on Judith McNaught, on Johanna Lindsay, you know, Jude Deveraux, the Jays,
Really
Mhm.
installing some
the
buttons. Yeah.
Yes.
Jenkinses, you know, and
Exasperated man.
exasperated man.
Chained to the bed, but by the by, it's fine.
And this was like my grandmother and aunt would have these books like stacked up incredibly high. And I just remember, particularly as my grandmother and aunt were women of color, that they would devour any character with like a tan. So, like any of those,
Mhm.
like really racially problematic, like the Sheik who loved me, or the, you
Mhm.
know, or the Native American who, like, you know, like any character that had any touch of like otherness, they're just like, okay, this is our chance, you know? Um,
Mm.
and so I just remember how much they devoured books that were multicultural because it felt like, oh, this is a brave new world.
Yeah. I mean, I think so many of us come to from a certain generation. Like, I don't necessarily think now it happens as frequently, but us, I think the three of us at least, kind of
Mhm.
all came through the same path, which is stealing these books from an older woman in our life.
Yeah.
And this kind of like, they didn't tell us what to do when we had our period, but they did leave us these romance novels. So I think there is this really interesting. I mean, my sister was 10 years older than me. She was a
Mhm.
romance reader. She went to college and left all her books under her bed, and we
Oh,
Oh,
shared a
nice.
room. And like my first book was Jude Devereux's The Black Lion, which I do not recommend handing to an 11-year-old. But I did okay. I turned out fine.
same.
But now I have a 10-year-old and I'm like,
Would I?
I have questions. Um, but I think that and what was really interesting is I did not hide my romance reading. And I think the reason why was twofold. One, I thought my sister was endlessly cool. And
Mhm.
like, so it felt to me like, well, if my sister who was in college did this, then it was cool for me to be this
Mhm.
way. Um, and then in my eighth, and this is sort of such a romance reader story, but I was in seventh grade and I had just started middle school, and the girl who sat next to me, whose name was also a T name, like, because we just happened to be seated next to each other in geography. I was reading Joanna Lindsay books like tucked into my geography textbook, like during class. And she turned to me and she was like, "Oh my gosh, is that Joanna Lindsay? I love her." And we are still like great friends.
That's awesome.
And I think there was that moment that sort of very early in my romance reading life, I found a person who also loved them. And so I wasn't like alone hiding them. It was like if we hid them, it was because we hid them like they were private to us. They were our
Hmm.
special thing as friends.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah,
Which
I
now I
can't.
think is we didn't have the internet, you know, like now I think
Right.
people get this all the time. They find people who love
You
their
can,
stuff.
yeah, I was very much like, I think my mom knew, but didn't say anything because she didn't
Hmm.
want to like unpack like why she had
The Black Lion.
betrayed by
Exactly.
Bertree Small,
Yes, yes.
like,
Exactly. Yeah.
and then so now my mom, I have like my books in my room, like on a big shelf, right? And they're visible, but they're not in the living room. But my 7-year-old son, he like will go to little free libraries and he'll bring me back a wedding book, he calls them. I'm like, yes, it's a wedding book
So cute.
for me. And then my mom was like, wait a minute, that was mine. She went, she's the only person I allow to like borrow from my personal collection because if I love it, it's mine. And if you want it, I'll just buy you one. Like I'm not a library. I work at the library. My books are mine. But I let her borrow my books for atonement. So we've come full circle. We finally have talked about it now that we're old.
Nice.
So I love that. And it just feels like so cool when you meet like-minded readers who have kind of been on a similar path as you have growing up because yeah, and like I read the same like Stephen King. I went right from kid books to grown-up books because there was not really anything else. And now I feel like we have this wealth of like middle grade and YA that is available
Mhm.
and there's some amazing writers and they're like the text is challenging but accessible and like it's so cool and I really think we need to protect that as romance readers too,
Agreed.
That's been neat to see. Let's see. So I always have to ask, do either of you have like a fun library story or what kind of role the public library has played in your writing life or creative life?
Oh my gosh. The library was really, really foundational for me. My aunt took me to the Houston Public Library and taught me the Dewey Decimal System. Out of exasperation, which I think is the key word here, because I kept running to her to say, okay, now let's find this book. When she was like, hey, like I'm doing my own thing, like leave me
Yeah.
alone. And so she teaches me, this complex card system and the
Cards,
yeah,
Nikki,
cards
really
and
dating
tiles,
us.
cards and tiles, you guys.
You pulled out a drawer.
Pulling out the drawer, fumbling through JJJJOHJOHA. Like
That's how we learn the alphabet.
that's how we
Yeah.
learn the alphabet. But
Hmm.
like the technology of the library became this like way that you were both like discovering who was next to Johanna Lindsay, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or who was like, so it was like this tool of discovery, but also just this way for me to learn how to index information and how to find
Hmm.
things that I need. And to this day, particularly growing up in a pretty, underserved area, the library was an incredible resource just um, for printing something out, for getting AC when it's very um, hot outside. So it was
Hmm.
to me it was an incredible resource. They gave out free lunches. It was everything.
Oh,
That's
wow.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Beth, I think you've probably heard my romance library
That's okay.
story, but I do have a very sort of cornerstone library story related to my romance community, and that is my middle school, which is where I was when I met my friend Lindsay, um, was across the parking lot from the public library in my town, and so after school, often I would go to the library and just hang out. And my, as long as I could. And they kept the romance novels in the dark in that library. Like you would have to, I'm sure, I don't know if this, I'm sure this exists, but you would, the lights, you would turn on the lights for only specific sections. Like if you
Hmm.
wanted to go into the back corner, it was in the very, very back corner of the library, and the lights were always off back there. And so, of course, that was like where the good stuff was, right?
Hmm.
And so I remember going there kind of like right after I discovered romance and finding the romance section of the library and discovering like, oh, there are so many of these books. Like it's not just what's under my sister's bed. Like
Yeah.
there are so many, and they all had the like covers and the hand lettering and the everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in libraries at the time, and I'm told that this still happens, at the very back of mass market paperbacks, people would mark, they would sort of at the very back on the back page, like put a little like signet, like a little hieroglyph, right? Like a little,
Mm-hmm.
my mark was like a green circle, your mark was a, gray, a pencil check. And it was very, very demure, right?
Very mindful.
Very
Very
mindful.
mindful,
And
very cutesy.
exactly. Just so, and what it would quickly realize, right? Like, was that it was a way for us to say, like, all right, Fabio is on the cover of every one of these Joanna Lindsay books. Which ones have I read? Right. And
Yes.
so what they would do is mark the ones that they had read. And then at the bottom, you would put an exclamation point if you liked it. And so you would go through and like flip through the back, and we were all leaving each other these messages. Like this, you'd take out the books that had the most exclamation points. I
Did
mean, yeah.
you
Nikki,
you
when I
invent
think about this now, I'm like, holy crap, I want a dissertation on this.
you invented
Mm-hmm.
the internet. Like
It's
sorry.
Yeah.
Goodreads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
Goodreads.
I
People
mean,
still do that, just so you know. I
it's
see it.
incredible. And I want I want
Yeah.
the research on these readers who like
Yes.
don't know each other, but are having this like really communal experience with these books.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
I mean, for me, the library, when I think about the library, I think about I can imagine standing in that dark hallway holding a mass market and like checking the back to see like, did I read this one? Who liked this one? I mean, having this real visceral experience with the text,
Mm-hmm.
I
with the
love
Yep.
that.
item, with the like, the
Yep. The
actual
physical
thing, the
print.
physical
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the one thing that we have now today that little bit reminds me of is like the Kindle quotes, or I don't know if Kobo does it, where like you're reading the ebook and you can see that
Yeah, who's under
2,857 people have highlighted this
Highlighted.
Mhm.
sentence. And I'm like, ooh, I love that.
Yeah. It's really it's so special. It's such a
Hmm.
special thing that,
Hmm.
I think again, I think is really specific to genre and probably romance even more.
Hmm. My
Um,
coworkers who are in their 20s, some of them, hello, I love you. They were like, why would people do that? I'm like, some people are just such like prolific readers that you literally will read something you forget. I do.
Yeah.
Or
but I
somebody will be
mean,
talking about a book and I'm like, I didn't read that. And then I go look back, I'm like, oh, I
Oh
did.
yeah.
I
Right
did
yeah.
read that.
And romance even now, right? Like think about like what we call cartoon covers, right? Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
they all have that sort of like bubblegum color. We can see the face, like we know what we're talking about when we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
All the books look the same
Yeah.
for a reason, like
Reason.
for
Hmm.
the reader.
Yeah.
But it is very easy for you to go, wait, I think it was orange, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And
Hmm.
that's where these
Exactly.
kind of, yeah,
Hmm. Absolutely. Yes, it is.
Yes.
And yeah, I still see them in our collection here. Like mystery readers too will mark in the
there,
books.
I
Hmm.
bet.
Yep.
Like I
And
imagine cozy
yep,
mysteries
cozy
probably.
is especially, and then we do have somebody who's really into the biographies at my branch and must be going
And
through
they're marking them.
the whole section, like A through Z, because the biographies are technically in the 920s for Dewey, but they're marked as 92, and then the first letter of the last name, so it's alphabetical, and I think they're just going through the alphabet
Wow.
because I keep
Amazing.
finding them like checked. I'm like, as long as it's not impacting the text, I don't care. Shh, I didn't say that. We
Yeah,
did have
I
to tell a
love
man like you can't mark on the top because he was like taking a blue marker and like marking the
Oh,
top
like
of the
across
book.
the top.
Yeah, because then he could just quick look
You
across.
can't. Oh my
I'm like, no, we
God.
can't do that.
commitment.
gotta hide it a
That's
little
not
bit.
mindful. That's not
Not
Tamir.
Not
no,
cutesy.
not cutesy. Oh, I love it so much. So before we get into talking about book bans, which will kind of segue us into our book recommendation, my last like fun question until we get to that is what kind of media have you been enjoying lately as part of like either escaping writing and taking a break or that's been kind of inspiring you lately? We were all bemoaning the Star Wars and My Lady Jane cancellations
What a
before we went
bummer.
live. So sad. The
Cowards.
Acolyte.
Cowards. They can't
Cowards.
let us have anything.
No.
No. It's like give it a chance. I like we're all busy professional folks. Like I watched all of The Acolyte. What more do you want from me?
Right?
And they were glorious.
They were glorious. They were fanfic fever dreams. Like,
Mhm,
Oh,
mhm.
amazing. I'm currently rewatching The Great, and
Okay.
that is making me even more mad about like all of this that's going on
it
because
is so good.
at least we got 3 seasons of The Great, but like it
Still.
it's terrific. And
It
Mhm.
really is.
if you have ever thought to yourself, like, I wish I could watch a show that has like all the like balls to the wall madness of like old school historicals, but like also with a twist of just like an absolute thread of terrific humor, that is The Great. The budget must be bananas. Every actor is perfect.
So funny.
Mm.
It's my second watch and I just love it so much. Like that's what I'm watching right now. I'm not watching anything new. I'm watching that.
Hey,
Rewatch.
we know you got 3 seasons, so you feel comfortable. Because now
Exactly.
we get our heart broken. What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, so I was or may not have been rewatching very particular scenes of The Acolyte. Who can say?
Which ones?
I
Which
mean,
ones, Nikki?
I
Are they
think
the scenes with his arms?
the arms. Also, there's this coming out of the water scene.
Oh, just that
yeah,
one.
I don't
This
know, but
moment where he's just
I
like,
think I
if you're not
know.
He's
going to
perfect.
join me, if you're not gonna
Not
join
gonna
me,
join me.
that to me, that line,
Would have
I
been
can
like,
just
whoosh.
exactly cut to the next scene.
It looked warm. I don't know.
Yes. Um, I'm also finishing that last season of Discovery with Captain Burnham, with Michael Burnham. I
Mm,
love her as a captain, and I love this new directive that they have to kind of find these progenitors of like the entire human race in the world. I just love big when people take big swings, and
Mhm.
Star Trek has been less afraid than Star Wars to take really big swings, and also
mhm,
like protect their characters of color as well.
mhm. I was a we so growing up, I was definitely we were a Star Wars household. That was definitely my parents' like thing. Like they went and saw all the movie. Like I think they started dating right around when A Good Hope came out, and
Hmm.
then yeah, and so my parents didn't really watch Star Trek, so I never really did because it wasn't, we didn't get to just watch whatever we wanted on a streaming service as kids. We had to watch what mom and dad were watching. But I've been meaning to start dabbling in Star Trek because I have a lot of beloved friends who love it. So you're inspiring me,
Nikki, where
Nikki.
should she start?
Yeah.
Where would you
Oh,
start a romance lover in Star Trek?
oh, okay. So here's the thing: Star Trek stay feeding us crumbs, okay?
Hmm.
But like, do not fall in love.
Oh,
But
that's okay.
I'm gonna say that like Picard and the Doctor Beverly, um,
Okay.
that was giving. Like every episode when they're together, the chemistry was like on fire. And let me just say this as an aside. This isn't a spoiler.
No,
Here's what they
it's good.
did in Picard, which is like years and years later. They're like, oh, we had a secret son like Picard and Beverly Crusher, but during TNG they didn't give us not one kiss, not one handhold, and now all of a sudden in Picard,
Secret baby?
years later they had a secret
Secret
baby.
baby.
Kiss me with your secret baby, Star Trek. Don't do me.
That sounds like when I got my feelings hurt by the X-Files. They kind of did that too.
X-Files will hurt your heart. But yes, I would say like the slow burn of Beverly Crusher and Captain Picard, the knowing looks, You know that
Mm,
they're boning, but they're just trying to keep it profesh.
I can live off of that for quite a
Well,
while.
all I
Yeah.
can imagine is that those two actors, like behind the scenes, were like, "Here's what we're gonna do."
Yeah,
They played you like a fiddle, and we thank them for
they
it.
did.
No one noticed what they were doing until much later.
Yes.
And I love that. And let me tell you, we still have physical media here at the public library. So if you ever want to get into like a show or something that isn't streaming, we might and probably do have it, unless it is from Apple TV or
Nice.
newer things.
Well,
My stink eye for no physical media from certain streaming platforms.
Hmm.
yep.
Anyway, come have a blockbuster date at the library. That's what I
Oh
say.
wow.
But Nikki, you're like writing Star Trek like inspired something, right? Aren't you writing space?
I alas, I'm
Oh,
actually
you're
writing
not.
mystery. I'm writing a
Oh,
I'm writing a
well, mystery's
mystery.
allowed to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
writing
fun.
a extremely steamy murder mystery. Um,
Ooh,
based on
yes.
Ooh,
one character that you may know and be annoyed by from book one. This is
impossible.
Maurice. He's a detective, and you know, things are
Oh,
going down.
fun.
Oh yeah, it's fun. It's funny. And
Hey.
yeah, he has to team up with a very sheltered, um, very sheltered like church girl who's like a Reddit detective. You know, she like notes him
Oh,
into
Oh,
everything
perfect.
like Bachelorette. You know,
Exasperated man. It must be just
exasperated
like,
man.
are you kidding
Are
me
you
from your
kidding me?
couch?
Yes, yes. You have it. You have the plot right. You read it. Okay, you have the plot right there. Literally, that's all it is.
That
It is
is
a man
perfect.
rolling his eyes that this woman has found out who got married on the Bachelorette, but cannot find the body. So he is, yeah, that's it.
I love
Amazing.
it. And Sarah,
I
what are you
cannot
working
wait.
on?
Um, I have, well, what I'm working on and what is next are two different things.
Okay.
I am working on the final book in the Hell's Bell series right now, which is very exciting. And it's
Mm,
Duchess's story. And I am so excited because I am back to historical after taking almost a full year writing something contemporary.
Yeah,
So which is out next summer. I
can't
wrote
wait.
a big kind of novel, a big family novel about a wealthy family that is returned to their private island in New England after their father has died, their billionaire father has died, only to discover that their father has left them an inheritance game. Um, so
yes.
it's like a little bit Succession, a little bit Knives Out, a little bit, oh no, I had a one night stand with my father's second in command. Um, and
Please.
and it is really, I really loved writing this crazy rich Rhode Islander family.
Love it.
And so my hope is that other people will love it too. There is a romance that runs right through it. But it's really about like families and secrets and
You
w-
write interconnected family relationships like so well. Do you
well,
understand that this is an
thank
emergency now? Do you understand that at first it was a nice to have, now it's a need to have?
you.
Okay.
Well, thank
Hmm.
you.
You and me same.
Well, I'll send you an early copy, everyone. So,
Beautiful.
Nikki
We
and
both,
Beth.
I will take it.
um,
We say
so,
yes.
but
And same
yeah,
for yours, Nikki.
yeah, I want all of that.
Oh yeah.
When is your, do you have a date? Do you have a
Yes. Next August. August
Okay.
2025.
perfect? Me
Yeah.
too. Summer 25.
Summer girls.
Yeah.
Yay. Leo season. Woohoo. Yeah, Tiffany, I'm actually gonna have you pull up our slides just quick. So it's Romance Month in August. Like we kind of like to celebrate the themed months here at the library. They ask us to kind of program around them. And coming up soon next month, it is Banned Books Week. And as romance readers, I know Sarah and Nikki are both just as like adamant as I am that we deserve to choose what we would like to read and what we would like to see on our library shelves and school library shelves. Tiffany, you can go next slide. So the official week is September 22nd through 28th, and you can read more about that on ala.org/bb-books. Um, but I know, Sarah, you are also part of an author initiative. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm on the national board of Authors Against Book Bans, which is the author wing, the author and creator wing, authors, illustrators, audiobook narrators, translators. It's just too long for the URL. It's the creator wing of the fight against book bans. And we are playing whack-a-mole, right? This is the other side is extremely organized. They have been doing this for longer than we have because we honestly all thought like, this is nonsense. Like they can't possibly ban books in the United States. Like that's bedrock freedom, our freedom to read. But the truth is that last year in school year 22 to 23, there were 3,360 instances of banned books, which was a 33% increase from the year before. And we don't have the full numbers for this past school year, but we know that in the first 6 months of the school year, that number was up 75% year over year. So like these people are coming for school libraries, for public libraries. They're coming for books about LGBTQ kids, about BIPOC kids, about people who deserve and need to see themselves in text. And not for nothing, books that teach all of us empathy and love and about the world around us. My favorite, and I say that with quotes, my favorite recent book ban is a book that was banned in Utah called Do Animals Fall in Love? It's for 8 to 10-year-olds, and it's literally about like how animals mate. Like some animals mate for life, and some animals, some seahorses like have the males have babies, like kind of like a bunch of animal facts. And it was banned for sexual content in Utah. Like these are not serious people, but they are doing a very serious thing. And so we're working really hard to change that. If you are an author, please come join us. You just have to put your name in our ranks. And, we love to have as many authors as possible in the group. But if you are just interested in getting involved, everylibrary.org is a good place to go. The ALA, which you also mentioned. I'm sorry, this is like my big soapbox
No,
for
yes.
Please.
but book bans are the fucking worst. And there are more of us than there are of them. And it's time for us to speak up. Also, if you've ever thought about running for school board,
Now's the time.
please do. You don't have to have a kid. You don't have to be a parent. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to have education experience. Run for school board. Just have a good head on your shoulders and care about what happens in schools and like care
Will they
about
take
getting.
childless cat ladies? Is
Yes,
that what you're telling us? Okay.
in
Yes.
fact.
Right.
You got it. And to add to that, just I'm going to give you all a little homework assignment. We love to hear from you at libraries. So wherever you live, just maybe take the time to write an email or letter to your library saying what books you are grateful that they have on their shelf, because we hear all the negative stuff a lot, but hearing positive stories means a whole lot more.
Mhm.
And if they get a flood of great comments, they can use that to be like, this person, we are helping this person, this community. I feel seen when I see this display. Or even if you're walking in and you see something you like, take a picture of it and tag them on social media.
And
That's
thank
your
your local
homework.
librarians. Just when you're in the library, say thanks for the hard work.
Yep.
People like Beth did not get into this to fight weirdos who want to ban books about animals.
Yep.
No, or just ask for a book recommendation. We're not scary. Um, and then if you are in the Milwaukee area, I'm very pleased to share that at our central library on Tuesday, September 24th, the Penguin Random House Banned Books Wagon will be heading down to that library, so anyone can come and check it out. They'll be handing out free books. I think they'll have 10 different books that had the most challenges in 2023, I believe.
Mhm.
And they'll be handing them out and then also sharing information about what you can do as a reader to help stop this because it's silly. All right, next slide, please. All right, so I have a quick game that we'll do real quick. So don't think about it too hard, but I'm going to make you both pick this or that. And then I do have a poll so everybody can play. So hold on, let me remind myself how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to launch. And here are your questions. If you're an attendee, you can see the questions. And then Tiffany, we're just going to go through the slides quick for Sarah and Nikki. So y'all take your time answering those on the side. And then Sarah and Nikki, go. Which one?
Nikki. Oh,
Oh,
wait,
Oh,
go
this
back
new
one.
one? Oh, this one's easy.
Okay, yes.
okay. This one is absolutely the hand flex. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Obviously.
Yeah, I'm
very
sorry.
nice. And then which persuasion were you? Oh, okay, sorry. Only one bed or too many beds?
Only one bed.
Same.
Only one bed.
Only
Like,
one bed.
it's iconic for one reason.
Yeah, it's
See,
terrific
I like
because
it
you know
when they're
why? Because we
mad.
kick our feet and like make a good romance novel noise when it happens. We know exactly what's
Mhm.
coming.
You
It's
know
like,
what's coming.
yes, he's either gonna sleep on the floor or they're gonna share, and it's gonna be great.
Yep.
All right, next
Exactly.
slide, please. All right, so secret spectacles
Oh,
or secret talents.
Oh, secret talent.
yeah. I think secret talent, unless we're talking about Derek Craven having stolen spectacles and keeping them secret. But if
Oh,
it's just like he happens to need spectacles to read or she needs spectacles to read, then it's secret talent for
secret
me.
talent.
Mhm. I have to say, one of my favorite secret talents was your heroine that ties the knots, Hattie.
Yeah.
Mm.
Or
But it
makes them,
wasn't really
yes.
secret, but I was like,
I do you have that's an important thing. Like, one of the things that we talk about a lot in writing and sort of craft is the specific makes characters more universal. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
it doesn't seem like it would work that way, but if you really want to love a character, to make a character who people love, like you have to make them special in some way.
Mhm.
And so secret talents do that for you.
Yes, yes, they will. And then you'll forever remember them and barely their name.
Exactly. The one who likes, knots.
Yep, I'm terrible at names, so it's all right. All right, next slide. So do we like nicknames or when they finally say like the full name or like the first name?
Oh, I'll okay. I'll add an addendum here. Like, I like full name and like title also. Like, if they just, particularly if it's historical and they
Mhm.
happened upon this marriage and he calls her like her full name, like with his last name, and like calls her like wife and all of that, I'm like, no, give me the whole title. Esquire, first of her name, Mother of Dragons. Give it all to me.
All
Okay.
of it.
Oh,
Um, I really love it. It's surprising no one who's read my books. I really, really love it when the hero has always been called like whatever it is and never been called by his first name. And then he says it to her. He's like, call me,
mm,
whatever
Mhm.
his name is, William or whatever.
And you're like,
It's hot.
yes.
It should happen like when they're fucking. It's just perfect. It's like a
That
perfect
moment.
moment. Yeah.
I agree. I can like a nickname, but they have to be very carefully deployed, just like baby. Like I love a good baby moment, but it's like once and deployed in a devastating, heart-shattering, and then rebuilding way. And if it's
Hmm.
over and over, I'm like, I can't. So I'm picky. All right, next slide, please. There's a right answer for this question.
oh,
For Beth, there's a right answer.
Yes, for me,
okay.
there's a
Clarifying question. Do,
yes.
do is the hero doing the clearing?
Yeah, who cleared the desk?
Who cleared the desk?
Correct.
Is it
That is
There's
the
things
right
on the
question.
desk, and then they're being
Oh no,
oh,
that's
there are
the
things
answer. Come
on the
on.
desk and the hero swipes it away? That it's
yes.
already
I
cleared.
Okay,
mean,
Yeah.
a
fair.
chaise is beautiful on a cover.
Yeah.
Beth.
Yes,
But like,
they can start
if he
there.
is just like, I gotta
Grab
get you to the nearest surface.
surface. Yeah. He has got
That
to
is very fair.
swipe away the papers, and the papers go fluttering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very cinematic
Especially
moment.
if he's like, if it's his desk and it's all, he is super buttoned up, like he
Yeah.
takes care of, he knows where every piece of paper on that desk is. And then suddenly it's just like, swipe, gone.
Yes. Pens, pencils fumbling
He
to the
doesn't
floor.
care.
Oh,
There's
He doesn't have page numbers on any of that.
come on, give it to me.
he will
Yeah.
use his pocket square to wipe off the butt print later. It's fine.
Iconic. Absolutely iconic.
Sorry, I snorted. I agree. Okay, you've convinced me. All right, next slide. I forget if we have more. Okay.
Oh.
So, I always like to leave folks with some recommendations. So, Sarah, these were yours. Nikki, you didn't send me any, so we're gonna make you play a little hard game next. So
Oh.
just be prepared to give some recs.
I just bought this because you told me to, Sarah.
Which
It's
one?
Butterfly Swords.
Oh, it's so good.
It's Nikki, you are going to lose your mind. It's
I cannot wait.
so good. I'll start there. Jeannie Lynn's Butterfly Swords, I think is, would I say the greatest road trip romance of all time? Possibly. Possibly. It's set in Tang Dynasty, China.
Oh my God. Sarah.
She is a like secret princess who has to be taken to like a castle, like a palace somewhere. He is supposed to be her bodyguard through the whole thing. I mean, he is her bodyguard through the whole thing, but she wants to learn how to protect herself. It has like, listen, Nikki, you're gonna love it. It has like, he teaches her how to fight. Like,
Oh my gosh.
there is possibly one of the greatest kisses, top 10 kisses in romance in this book. It's so good. And he, of course, like it's perfect road trip because when they get to the end of it, there's no way this guy ends up with her. Like he is just totally of a different class, of a different place, like would never ever be accepted, like be able to be her partner. And it is chef's kiss.
Oh my gosh.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah.
I was looking at the email earlier, Beth, and it said 3 to 4 recommendations. And as typical with me, I just can't stop. But so
No,
I'll
it's
just
fine.
blow through them. Gabriella Games is the next best fling. This is a debut romance. She's a librarian, so I put this on because it's relevant to our evening. This is incredibly cute. She is like is unrequitedly in love with her best friend who is he gets engaged and at the beginning of the book, and she's like, okay, I have got to get him out of my head. And she's like certain that she is going to do this. She goes to the engagement party and an ex-NFL player is there, obviously. And it turns out that he is actually unrequitedly in love with the fiance, the bride in this scenario. And she stumbles upon him like basically prepping to like go wreck the engagement party and like win back the bride, and like has to convince him to stop because she doesn't want to ruin her best friend's like experience. And then the two of them fall for each other. It's incredibly cute. Love in the library. I mean, as actual librarians, we probably shouldn't promote that, but it's Love in the Library in text.
I've read this one and I'm pleased to report there's no inappropriate conduct
library
in
shenanigans.
the library.
Well,
I draw the line for myself.
that
That is a no for me.
library inappropriateness.
Danica Nava's book, The Truth According to Ember, is also a debut. She is this, we believe, is the first Indigenous author writing about Indigenous people in romance, in contemporary romance ever. And it's very cute. Ember lies after, applying for a job for something like 40 times and like getting rejected. She lies and says she's not Native on the form, gets the job, and then gets there and the IT guy at work is Native, and like and she gets sort of swept up in this like cascading snowball of lies. It's really charming. Danica is a great writer. I'm so excited about what she will bring to the genre after this, but I had a great time reading this. Angelina M. Lopez is one of my very favorite writers. This is actually a self-published anthology of a bunch of short stories that she's written, all of which are like blazingly political. And I mean that in the sense of like actually about in many cases politics. Like the characters are all wrapped up in politics. And she writes a great sex scene. This is just so sexy. Even there's one story that's so short there's no sex in it, but it's like it singes your fingers with the sexual tension. It's just terrific. And then The Trouble with Anna is coming in March. It is a debut historical. You can recommend it from your local library or request it from your local library so that it'll be on the shelf then. And it is a real classic, like Regency heroine who is just like causing trouble, like causes natural trouble all over the place. And then is finally like her grandfather dies and she's supposed to inherit some money, some pin money. And he basically says like, you can't have any money until you like settle down and get married. So she finds this like very stiff lord stiff lord.
I was like,
I didn't even hear it the first time.
it's all
And
good.
I mean, it's
Nice
what I
to
love. I was saying to somebody the other day, what I love about this book is it actually feels like it's like really like a classically delicious Regency, like
Yeah.
from the days of great Regency. So if you're interested in historical, put that on your list. And that's also a debut.
And the
Yay.
cover is doing something a little cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's giving
Trying
Anna
something new.
Taylor-Joy. That's who
Yeah.
it reminds me
Yeah.
of, that Anna Taylor-Joy
Mm-hmm.
from that Emma remake
Yes.
and
Like the font is
Furiosa.
very modern. I mean, this could
Mm-hmm.
give like, Lady Jane, or
Mm-hmm.
it may not be as sardonic, but it looks a little bit like it's doing something really cool.
I love it. All right, next slide, please. Okay, these are mine. I'm going to go really fast. And don't worry, again, we will email you with the links because all of
Oh,
these are in our catalog. So I just picked up Second Tide's The Charm by Chandra Bloomberg because it's about a shark scientist and she gets the dream gig for the summer to be out on this boat. Oh, guess who owns the boat? Her ex. Oh no, now they're stuck on a boat all summer studying sharks and being angry, but maybe probably falling in love.
mhm.
I also just listened to the Mistress Experience, which was exquisite,
Oh,
and I really appreciated this historical. She is a lady of the night, a whore, if you will, and she is
if
won
you
in an
will.
auction, and she believes she's won in an auction for a month of her services by somebody, and then it turns out, and then she gets smuggled to this little country cottage, and it turns out it's this other very buttoned up man who couldn't be caught bidding on her for, his reputation, and how he's going to make her stay at his country little cottage, and all she brought was like her slutty like escort gowns, and she's supposed to pretend to be his cousin.
Okay.
And she's supposed to teach him how to like please his future. He doesn't have a wife yet, but he wants to be good in bed to his wife, and he has an impotence issue that she helps him with, and it was great.
Let me tell you, Scarlett Peckham's The Lord I Left. Like,
Mhm.
I read that book and like I had to close it at some point. I was like, this is the hottest, like a preacher on a road trip with a um sex worker is I'm sorry. That's
Right?
it's beautiful. It was just so good. When we talk about
Mhm.
exasperated man, oh Lord.
Mhm. Yes, this guy is just like, "Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?" And then he's like, "How about we learn to teach you to bake a cake?" And she's like, "You want me to what now? You don't want to kiss me, but you want to bake a cake with me? That's what you spent all that money at?"
Yeah.
And she's just a hoot, and I just loved it. It was for a Scarlett Peckham, it was lighter than her other books I have read in tone. So if you want like an easy entry point, this one is a good start. Okay, and then Outdrawn is a really sweet contemporary romance about rival cartoon slash comic artists who get, one is working at the big cartooning comic company and the other one gets hired on as a contractor, and they are rivals online with their online comics, but then they have to work together on a comic for this company. and they fall in love, and it's spicy and sweet, and just was a really cool take on like a office romance that I haven't read quite anything like that before. In on Sweetbriar Lane is a great one if you like fall aesthetic and like a pumpkin festival, but you're not really into the spooky stuff. So this is a good like fall apple cider romance where she has to promote her pumpkin festival, small town romance, and I think it's on sale now. You can get it from us at the library. And then Ravishing the Air is that will just destroy your life, and then you'll have to rebuild it from the ground up because Sherry Thomas
Yep.
hurts your feelings.
Yes. Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yes.
Isn't that what romance is for, though? Just destroying your
Yes.
life and then.
Yes. Yes. I was like, there's no way this book is gonna work. There's no way. And then it did, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
beautiful. All right, next slide, please. So Nikki, I'm gonna have Sarah pick 2 or 3 of the
Okay.
things from here, and then you will have to give a recommendation.
Okay.
Oh, all right,
Ooh.
Nikki.
Okay.
Let's go with fake relationship.
Ooh, fake relationship. Okay. Okay. There's so many. Um, there is this book by Etta James. I mean, not Etta James, Etta Easton, The Kiss Countdown. It
Mm,
is about this astronaut who is going to space, like he's going to Mars, and there's this teacher, and like she needs a place to live, and so she like pretends to be his girlfriend while he's like, "Oh, you're going to Mars, so I'll just stay right here and like settle at your place." So, but they have to like pull it off before he goes off to Mars to their with their family. It is very cute. The kiss count.
Listen, this is the great. So one of my biggest problems with fake relationship is that, like, what's the problem? Why can't you just
Yeah,
make it real?
yeah,
They can't make it real because he's going to Mars
yeah.
is
that's a
some
long
real
way away.
conflict.
That's real. Yeah,
That's like 3-4 years of
yeah.
conflict.
One way, yeah. I love it. Do you want to
All
do another
right.
one more, Nikki, or should we move forward?
Um,
I can do another one.
all
Okay.
right. Let's do, oh, this one's perfect for you. Let's do geeky lead.
Ooh, geeky lead. Oh, okay, okay. My brain is like that gif of the lady with the math.
Yeah.
There's so
Mhm.
many. Like, I mean, Allie Hazelwood is honestly just so good at a incredibly geeky lead. I also love um who else am I thinking of? There's just so many. Ceresia Glass also
Mhm.
has a
Hmm.
lot of like gaming and like introverted, like super, mistaken
Hmm.
identity, like fandom nerddom leads. So Ceresia Glass is a great example of that too. Allie Hazelwood's geeky leads, iconic. Yeah, honestly, they're like I love that's like one of my favorite genres. Just like an absolute nerd. I'm also reading 12th Night um by
Ooh,
it's her book name is like Olive Blake, but she changed it for 12th Night because it's a YA, and it is a retelling of Shakespeare.
Hmm.
And the lead is like obsessed with this fake show
Oh,
called
it says role playing. Is role playing the name?
no, it's called
Oh,
12th Night.
oh,
oh, okay.
Oh yeah,
I'm sorry. That's the Ceresia Glass somebody is
yeah.
saying. Sorry.
yeah,
Yes, Alex and Farrell Fallmouth. Yeah, that's I would have never gotten that. But yes, and she's like obsessed with this show called War of Thorns, which is Game of Thrones, and it is just so funny the way she writes like Game of Thrones fandom and like Conquest and Dungeons and Dragons. It's so fun.
that's awesome. I'm gonna have to get that one right away.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Before we'll do a few questions. I just, of course, I need to plug a couple of things because that's what we do. Coming up on September 17th, many of our locations will be having a National Voter Registration Day mini carnival. So bring your kids, teens. They'll have real voting booths so everyone can vote. They'll have some sort of question that everyone will be voting on so you can practice how a voting machine works, get registered to vote, and just overall learn more about the election process with the Election Commission, League of Women's Voters, and all sorts of other great organizations. There'll be prizes and giveaways. So we hope to see you there. It's a lot of fun. And then if you like our chat tonight, I do lead an in-person romance book club. It meets every other month because I know we're all busy. Our next read is going to be The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan
Oh,
Bannon for
that's a
October.
great one.
I loved it. And we had so much fun talking about The Art of Scandal last month,
Awesome.
which was juicy.
This is a great list,
It's
Beth.
a really
Thank
good
you.
list.
You don't even want to know how long I agonized over
Of
my
course.
picks because it's really hard to choose.
This is so good.
But it's been really great. We have a great little group. Maybe I know some of you live so far. I wish you could come. Maybe someday I can get permission to do another Zoom one, but we'll see. Anyway, I think that might be my last slide, but is there any more, Tiffany? I can't remember. Oh, and then if you're participating in the adult summer reading program, you still have until the end of the month to log your 5 books to be entered into winning some great prizes, including Milwaukee Film memberships and other cool swag. I forget. I'm on the committee and I don't even remember what the prizes are. I think they're tablets. Yeah. Anyway, even if you don't live
Fun.
here, you can go check out your public library. Most have summer reading programs now for all ages. And don't we all love getting some rewards for reading books? I know I do. Very good. Okay, Tiffany, I think you can take the slides down and then we just have a few questions. Um, let's see. Marta has a question for Sarah. While each book and character has their own voice, I'm curious to know, after 16 historical romance novels, how difficult was it to change the voices in your head to write contemporary?
That is a good question. Interestingly, the voices were not the problem with the switch to this book. I think uh I was very lucky in that I set this the contemporary is set on an island that doesn't have cell service. Like it's sort of I sort of carved myself a space that where I didn't have to deal with like some of the pressing issues of the world. But what I would say is for me, the challenge with writing this book is it's a piece of fiction, right? So there's in romance, I'm spending, I talk about like it's like walking two dogs, right, at once. And so you're like walking two dogs and you get really good at walking two dogs. And this is kind of a big family and there are, 6 or 8 dogs. And I'm just like, hopefully they won't pull me down. That's what the sort of difference was with this book. But it wasn't actually difficult for me to think about these characters in voice because they are very real to me. So yeah, I hope they will be real to you too.
We believe, yes. Okay, for Nikki, Marta asks, rewriting books we were forced to read in high school is a great idea. Did this idea start at the time with the thought that this book would be so much better if it had some actual sexy times, or was this something you revisited as an adult, clearly with the same thought?
I think about, I like to riff on like ideas like all the time. I like to think about like the way that someone would do a remix, or like if you like listen to like Biggie Smalls and how he sampled Juicy, which is, if you listen talking about a song with your parents, you're like, you know what? Juicy's a great song. It's a great song to vibe to. And then when you listen to Biggie Smalls and he starts off over Juicy saying, it was all a dream, you're like, whoa, this is for me. Right. And so like I think one of the things that I love about like telling a new story is keeping those like really fun elements of what I loved and like bridging and like building a uh like recognizable but also fun and new and different version of that. So I always think about like remixing something. Like I'm watching Star Trek and I'm like, but what if they turned left?
Mm-hmm.
It's in me.
I love that. So Laura asks, Nikki, can you tell us more about Smut You in your bio? Is this a writing group and where can else can we find the people you're working with?
Smut U is actually based in Minnesota, y'all. It is based in Minnesota. Sam Cheetah is the fearless leader of Smut U, and I've joined virtually. and we are just a feminist writing collective, and we just like fearlessly show each other our unhinged smut until it makes sense to to other people. So it's people with at various levels of like writing proficiency, but like if you have a song in your heart and you want to firm it up, there's something to be said for a community of like-minded folks who are writing in that same vein. So I love Smut You.
That's awesome. Let's see. Somebody asked in the chat if These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean would be comparable in length, and Sarah, looks like you answered. It's about 50 pages longer.
Yeah.
It's longer. It's bigger. It's there are more point of view characters. And I also had to deliver you a romance, so
Yay. That was my dorky giggle.
it was funny because I remember when I like came up with the idea and I pitched it to people, they were like, "But will it be a romance?" And I was like, it's written by me, so yeah.
Clearly.
And there's a full sex scene in it, you guys. Like I did not pull punches.
My queen. My queen.
Hero.
Big as a
Uh,
house, and he eats. What can I say?
oh, you heard it here first.
Unwell. Unwell.
Sorry, I keep snorting.
I mean, it's a MacLean book, of course.
Yeah. I'm terrified that people are gonna
I
read
love it.
my
Jess.
initial
I
Oh
mean,
and
gosh.
like
it's
what
just yeah, like share it with it's for, I don't know. We're gonna show those book club girlies what we do over here on my
come
side, on our side
on.
of the pond.
When we discussed the art of scandal at my last club, one of my very, very newbie romance readers who is a retired teacher, she's
Mhm.
absolutely lovely, and she was like, "Oh, that one was really spicy." I was like, "Yes, it was. And did you like it?" And she's like,
Yeah.
"It's like, welcome. We are all friends here."
I love it. I love it.
Oh, all right. We'll ask that one last. And then Carolee would like to know, she is a rock history professor here, and
Cool.
we went to school together. Hi, Carolee.
Is it
Rock
rock and
hit like
roll
rock and roll.
or
Yeah,
geology
That's
or
yeah.
rock and roll?
fun. Geology.
She's my hero. I love thinking of the
I mean,
soundtrack I'd create for each book. Do either of you have music in mind that captures the unique twists of each story or emotion behind the characters? So how does music play into your
oh,
work or writing?
Yeah, I mean, yes is the answer. I am not one of these authors who can like build you a playlist and be like, this is the playlist. I actually, um, I but I definitely have, I will be listening to songs and I will hear a lyric and think, oh, that would make a good book. So I guess my answer is not really valuable because I can't like name a song that I did this with, but there are often songs where if there's a great love story in the song, or a great, just like just one line will just inspire a whole thing. Like I remember I wrote a book called A Scot in the Dark, and the heroine of the book is like the most beautiful woman in London, and she is so lonely. She's
mm,
so lonely, and it was inspired by a song um by Ani DeFranco, and there's a line in it, and the line is, everyone harbors a secret hatred for the prettiest girl in the room. And I
oh,
was like, what is it like to be that girl?
yeah.
And I almost never write about pretty characters. Like almost all of my characters are very like ordinary looking. And so that was a really fun book to write. And it came from that line.
Yeah. Um, music was just such a huge part of both of my books. Like the characters, Lisa herself is a DJ and she builds playlists and she thinks she kind of knows you by by building that. Nora and Bear build a playlist as they run that like kind of grows and becomes like suspiciously sexual, you know. But I would say like something that I was listening to a lot when I was writing Pride and Protest was this like very old school Robin Thicke um like remix of like Beethoven.
Ooh.
Beethoven's like but it's like a hip hop version. I think it's called When I Get You Alone. And it's just about this man who's just so frustrating. He's like, when I catch you, Ricky, Ricky, when I catch you, you know. So I just love that aspect of Dorsey saying, just give me the time, you know, and I will make use of it.
Mhm.
And I love that. I love that. And Nora and Bear, like there's so many, but like any like Jodeci song where the person is begging, you know, like the song where he goes, "It's been an hour since you've been gone." Like any song where like a black man is in tears because he did wrong, just a begging. Like I just, it's so Bear, especially like after like you know people realize what's happened. I love the grovel. The grovel is key.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, it is. And that is so shown in the book too. I loved
yeah.
it so much. My face hurts from smiling, which is a good thing. So to kind of wrap up, I will ask of both of you, just remind everyone what you're working on now and where everyone can follow you to keep track.
I am writing a historical right now that, like I said, the final book in the Hell's Bell series. It's coming next year, hopefully. I mean, it is coming next year, assuming that they put it out when they say they're going to put it out. So, but it'll be late next year. And you can find me weekly at Fated Mates, which is my podcast every Wednesday. And you can find me on Threads and on Instagram. And that is it. That is where you can find me.
Yes, yes. I am working on a murder mystery called Princess and the PI, also described as Princess and the P. You get you see what I'm doing, but
That's so
Mhm.
and
cute.
it's adorable. So hard boiled detective has to team up with a sheltered internet detective to solve a murder, and calamity ensues. Hot scenes ensue, and I love them so much. They're so fun together. Um, and where can you find me? On Instagram, I like to make really just ridiculous videos. It's not like, you know, anything deep. I'm just like using sounds and being silly. So
Mhm.
Instagram, I'm not great on threads, but I'm gonna try to like get on threads and like be a person on there, but mostly on Instagram. And I also, me and Adriana just this year launched our own podcast called Unbound Pod. And we talk about kind of broad themes and bring diverse romances in conversation with pop culture. And so last season was all about the West and our imagination of the West and how that plays out in diverse literature.
Amazing. Yay. Well, I just want to thank everyone in the audience for being here and my two amazing guests. It's been such a great chat. We went a little over, but that's fine. And we were all having fun. And thanks for hanging out with us. And I would love to have you back anytime. And I wish you best of luck for all of your future books. And let us know how we can keep supporting you. And then everyone else, we will send you an email in a couple days. I do the email, so whenever I get to them to give you the recording link, and then I have been taking notes of everything we've been chatting about tonight so I can share where you can find all those amazing podcasts, books, and media recommendations. So
Right.
thank you so much.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
you have a
much,
great
Beth.
night. Yeah.
Thanks,
All
Nikki.
right. We'll
Thanks,
see you
everybody,
next
for
time.
joining us.
I know.
Have a good
Take
night.
care.
Thanks all.
Bye.